Alex had never imagined a place like this. As the first human explorer to set foot on the distant planet of Scifi, he felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. The sky shimmered with colors he had never seen before, soft purples blending into glowing greens, and the air seemed alive with faint hums and whispers as if the planet itself was watching him. Towering crystalline structures reflected the sunlight in dazzling patterns, making the city look like it had been built from stars. Even the streets glowed faintly, illuminating the paths for travelers like him. He stepped carefully, observing the unusual wildlife around him. Birds with transparent wings darted through the air, leaving streaks of light behind, while small creatures with shimmering scales scurried along the streets, disappearing into tiny crevices. Every sight made Alex's heart race with wonder. He had traveled far from Earth to witness alien worlds, but nothing had prepared him for the beauty and strangeness of Scifi. The journey to the royal palace had been quiet, with Alex's guides, explaining the customs of the alien people. Scifi was ruled by a royal family known for both wisdom and pride. Visitors were expected to behave politely and show respect, and any sign of disrespect could be seen as an insult to the entire civilization. Alex knew the stakes. His mission was simple in theory: observe, learn, and establish diplomatic ties. In practice, it was delicate and challenging. One wrong move could ruin everything he hoped to achieve. As he approached the palace gates, Alex felt his chest tighten. The palace was enormous, a blend of elegant curves and sharp crystal spires like something out of a dream. Guards lined the entrance, their tall, slender forms clad in iridescent armor. Their eyes glowed faintly, showing they could sense intentions and emotions, not just words. Alex reminded himself to stay calm. He had trained for situations like this, but nothing prepared him for the overwhelming sense of presence this place held. Inside, the halls were even more extraordinary. Light reflected off crystal walls, casting dancing patterns that made the rooms seem alive. The air carried a faint musical hum, almost like the planet itself was speaking in a language Alex could not yet understand. As he walked, his guide explained the royal hierarchy, pointing out portraits of past rulers and ceremonial artifacts. Each piece seemed alive with history, and Alex felt both small and privileged to be here. Then he saw them, the royal family. They entered a grand hall, moving with grace and authority. Alex noticed the youngest of them immediately, a 19-year-old named Lyra, already famous across the planet for her intelligence and sharp wit. She had a presence that demanded attention. Her eyes, a deep and unusual shade, seemed to examine Alex in an instant, as if she could see through his very thoughts. Alex straightened instinctively, aware that first impressions were everything in diplomacy. The formal greeting began. Alex extended his hand and spoke politely, introducing himself and his mission. Lyra's response was unexpected. She smiled, but there was a hint of condescension in her tone. "So, a human," she said, her voice light but edged with mockery. "I hope you are not as clumsy and emotional as your stories suggest." Alex froze for a moment, processing the words. He could feel a flush of surprise and discomfort, but he quickly reminded himself of his purpose. Reacting angrily or defensively would only worsen the situation. He forced a calm smile and nodded politely, replying with measured respect. "I hope to learn from your people and share knowledge in return." The young royal's eyes flicked over him once more, sharp and evaluating. She seemed amused by his restraint, perhaps expecting him to respond with offense. The human delegation standing behind Alex looked uneasy, unsure how he would handle such a personal slight. Alex's mind raced. He knew that understanding Lyra's behavior was key. Her pride and reputation likely required her to test visitors to see if they were worthy of respect or simply fragile intruders. The conversation continued, but every word from Lyra carried a subtle challenge. She spoke of human weaknesses, of how humans tended to act impulsively and rely on emotion over logic. Each remark was carefully designed to provoke, and Alex felt the tension rising. Yet beneath the challenge, he detected curiosity. Lyra was not attacking out of cruelty, at least not entirely. She was testing, observing, and trying to understand the human standing before her. Alex decided to focus not on the insult but on learning. He observed her carefully, noting her expressions, her gestures, and the way she interacted with those around her. Each detail added to his understanding of her personality and the society she represented. He realized that maintaining composure was not a sign of weakness, but a way to earn her respect. By remaining calm, he showed that he could navigate her challenges without losing dignity or patience. By the time the greeting ended, Alex had gained a small victory. Though Lyra's words had been sharp, he had not reacted impulsively. The young royal tilted her head slightly, perhaps surprised that the human had not been easily rattled. It was a small moment, almost imperceptible, but it carried significance. Alex had learned an important lesson about patience, observation, and the quiet power of restraint. As he was guided through the palace, Alex could not help but marvel at the balance between beauty and authority in every detail. The young royal's sharp words had tested him, but the experience had also opened a door. He knew that this encounter was only the beginning of a journey that would challenge him in ways he could not yet imagine. Despite the initial insult, Alex felt a growing determination. He had come to Scifi not just to represent humanity, but to build bridges, even in the face of challenge. And as he walked through the glowing halls, he promised himself that he would not let pride or provocation cloud his mission. Whatever came next, he would face it with patience, respect, and quiet confidence, the traits that might yet earn the respect of a 19-year-old alien royal who had tried and failed to rattle him. The tension in the royal palace did not fade after the first encounter. In fact, it seemed to grow. Lyra, the 19-year-old alien royal, had made her opinion of humans clear, and she continued to test Alex in subtle ways. Every glance she cast, every carefully chosen word, seemed designed to provoke. Alex felt the weight of her scrutiny, but reminded himself that this was part of understanding a new culture. Diplomacy was never easy, and this was far from a simple mission. The next day, Alex was invited to join the royal family in the palace gardens. The gardens were unlike anything he had seen on Earth. Plants glowed softly in the dim morning light, and flowers seemed to hum with energy. Trees with crystalline leaves shimmered as the wind passed through them. Streams of clear, sparkling water flowed through the gardens, reflecting light in rainbow patterns. It was a place of serenity, yet Alex felt a subtle tension as he walked, knowing Lyra might continue her challenges at any moment. Lyra appeared from behind a cluster of luminescent flowers, her presence commanding attention. She studied Alex silently, a small smile playing on her lips, but her eyes were sharp and analytical. The moment was quiet, yet the air between them felt charged. Alex held himself steady, choosing not to speak first. In that silence, a strange understanding passed between them. She was testing him, and he was choosing not to react. As they walked together, Lyra made several comments that could have been taken as insults. She spoke of humans being overly emotional, of their tendency to act before thinking, and of how fragile they might be in unfamiliar environments. Each remark was subtle, wrapped in polite words but carrying the unmistakable edge of judgment. Alex listened carefully, nodding when appropriate but never reacting with anger or defensiveness. He realized that showing patience and composure was more powerful than arguing or explaining himself. The human delegation, observing from a distance, grew anxious. They wondered if Alex's restraint was wise. Others might have reacted immediately to such sharp words, either with pride or anger. But Alex understood something important. Lyra's remarks were not meant to harm him. They were meant to test him, to see how he would behave under pressure. Every leader, human or alien, used tests in some form, and Alex knew that this was a moment that could define his mission. During the walk, Alex noticed more about Lyra's personality. She was proud, certainly, but also deeply aware of her responsibilities. Her sharp words were not simply insults. They were tools to measure strength, patience, and intelligence in those around her. Alex realized that if he wanted to build trust and understanding, he had to respond not with immediate emotion, but with observation and calm action. This insight gave him a sense of quiet confidence. As they moved deeper into the gardens, Lyra's tone began to shift subtly. While she still made pointed comments, there were moments of genuine curiosity. She asked about Earth, about Alex's experiences, and about human ways of solving problems. Alex answered politely, giving detailed explanations without arrogance or condescension. He shared stories of human invention, cooperation, and resilience, focusing on aspects that might interest the young royal. Lyra listened, sometimes interrupting with skeptical questions, but Alex remained steady. He noticed that his calm responses began to change her demeanor, even if only slightly. Her sharp eyes no longer darted with constant judgment. They occasionally softened with curiosity. The process was slow, almost imperceptible, but Alex understood. That trust was being built, even in small increments. By the afternoon, the walk turned into a discussion of culture, history, and values. Lyra, still maintaining her royal pride, asked questions about human traditions, ceremonies, and rules. Alex explained as much as he could without revealing confidential details. He spoke about the importance of respect, patience, and understanding in human interactions, qualities he himself tried to embody in their encounter. Each word was carefully chosen to show that humans were capable of thoughtfulness and dignity, despite any stereotypes she might have held. The tension that had hung over their first meeting began to transform. While Lyra still carried her pride and wit, Alex's patience and composure created a subtle shift. She began to see him not as a clumsy or emotional human, but as someone capable of understanding and respect. This shift did not happen suddenly. It was gradual, built from every careful word and measured response. By the end of the garden tour, Alex had achieved a small but important victory. Lyra had tested him repeatedly, yet he had not faltered. He had maintained dignity, shown interest in her culture, and demonstrated the patience and calm that would be essential for further interactions. The human delegation watched with growing admiration, realizing that Alex's approach was quietly powerful. He had proven that respect and patience could sometimes speak louder than words or displays of force. As they returned to the palace, Alex reflected on the day. He understood that diplomacy was not about immediate results or flashy gestures. It was about observation, restraint, and the ability to respond thoughtfully under pressure. Lyra's insults, while sharp, were not personal attacks. They were challenges meant to test his character. By meeting them with calmness rather than confrontation, Alex had begun to earn respect in a way that words alone could not achieve. The day ended with a formal dinner in the palace, and Alex continued to observe carefully. Lyra sat across from him, her sharp demeanor still present, but now tempered by a hint of curiosity. Their conversations were polite, structured by ceremony, but Alex sensed a growing understanding beneath the surface. He knew that trust was slow to develop, especially with someone so proud and intelligent, but the foundations were being laid. Alex went to bed that evening thinking about the lessons of patience, observation, and quiet strength. He realized that his mission on Scifi was as much about understanding the people as it was about learning the planet. Lyra's initial insults had been a test, and he had passed not with words but with actions. Actions of calm, respect, and careful attention. He knew the days ahead would bring new challenges, new tests, and perhaps new insults. Yet he felt ready. He had discovered an important truth. Sometimes the most powerful response was not to argue or defend, but to walk steadily, observe carefully, and let character speak for itself. That understanding gave him confidence as he prepared for the days ahead, knowing that the journey with the young royal had only just begun. The next morning, Alex awoke early, feeling both anticipation and a quiet determination. Today, he would join the palace for a more formal tour, one that included deeper insight into the daily lives of the royal family and their responsibilities. He knew Lyra would continue to test him, and he prepared himself to respond not with words but with patience, observation, and calm composure. As he entered the palace courtyard, the sun reflected off the crystalline spires, creating patterns of light that danced across the walls. Palace staff moved gracefully around him, performing their duties with precision and efficiency. Alex noticed subtle interactions, how respect and hierarchy shaped every movement and gesture. It was a world unlike anything he had experienced. Structured yet fluid, disciplined yet filled with beauty. Lyra appeared almost immediately. She walked with an air of confidence, her gaze sharp and alert. Today, however, there was a subtle difference in her demeanor. She had not forgotten their previous encounters, but her tone hinted at curiosity rather than pure mockery. As they began the tour, Alex realized that this was a critical moment. How he conducted himself now would shape her perception of humans, and perhaps the future of his mission. As they walked through the palace's private quarters, Lyra's words carried an edge, but Alex noticed the testing became more complex. She commented on human behavior, comparing it to the disciplined routines of her own people. She asked whether humans could maintain composure in difficult situations, whether they could make decisions without letting emotions interfere. Each question was subtle, almost philosophical, and designed to probe his character. Alex answered thoughtfully, carefully choosing words that reflected both honesty and respect. He spoke of the human capacity for patience, cooperation, and resilience. He explained how humans relied on observation and understanding, not just impulse, to navigate challenges. His tone was calm, never defensive, and he listened attentively to Lyra's responses. In this way, he demonstrated that humans were capable of thoughtfulness and dignity, even in the face of provocation. Lyra's eyes narrowed slightly, studying him with the intensity of someone seeking weakness. Alex realized she was not only evaluating him as a human, but also assessing his ability to navigate her complex society. Her pride and responsibility as a young royal required her to challenge visitors, to ensure they were capable and worthy of trust. Every sharp comment was a test, and Alex understood that passing these tests required more than knowledge. It required composure, empathy, and patience. As they reached a gallery displaying historical artifacts, Lyra paused, pointing to a series of ceremonial objects. "Humans value objects differently," she said, her voice tinged with skepticism. "Do you understand the importance of history and tradition in your own culture?" Alex nodded thoughtfully. "We do," he replied. "History guides our decisions, teaches lessons, and connects us to those who came before. Objects and traditions hold meaning not because of their form, but because of what they represent. They remind us of responsibility, courage, and the need to act with integrity." Lyra's expression softened slightly, though she still maintained her sharp demeanor. She asked more questions, and Alex continued to answer patiently, never rushing or speaking with arrogance. Over time, he noticed small changes. Lyra's interruptions became less frequent, her tone less biting. Curiosity began to mix with her, pride, and she seemed genuinely interested in his perspective. During a walk through the palace's living quarters, Alex observed the staff closely. He noticed the subtle hierarchy and how respect was expressed through actions rather than words. Lyra seemed to watch him, evaluating whether he noticed these nuances. Alex did, responding with careful observation and respectful acknowledgement. His awareness and restraint impressed the royal staff as well, who began to regard him with quiet admiration. At one point, Lyra asked him a direct question about handling conflict. "If someone insults you," she asked, "how would you respond without appearing weak?" Alex thought for a moment. "I would try to understand their intentions first," he said carefully. "Responding with anger rarely solves a problem. Listening, observing, and responding thoughtfully shows strength, patience, and character. It is easy to react impulsively, but it takes real discipline to remain calm and act wisely." Lyra's eyes widened slightly. She had not expected such an answer. There was no arrogance, no defensiveness, only calm, measured thought. She seemed to respect the clarity and sincerity in his words, though she did not yet admit it openly. Alex realized that this was a turning point. His silence in the face of provocation, combined with careful words when appropriate, was beginning to shift her perception. The tour continued, taking them through rooms filled with knowledge and technology that seemed almost magical. Lyra asked questions about human innovation and creativity, and Alex responded with examples of human accomplishments. He focused on ingenuity, teamwork, and problem-solving, emphasizing qualities that might resonate with a young leader responsible for her people. By the end of the day, Alex felt a sense of quiet accomplishment. Though Lyra had tested him repeatedly, he had not faltered. He had maintained dignity, demonstrated patience, and earned small but meaningful glimpses of respect. The young royal, though still proud and sharp, seemed less intent on provocation and more willing to observe and understand him. As the human delegation returned to their quarters, they praised Alex quietly. His calm approach had made a strong impression, not only on Lyra, but on the palace staff and advisors. Diplomacy was rarely about immediate results. It was about patience, observation, and careful action. Alex had learned that navigating challenges with dignity often left a far stronger impression than confrontation or argument. That evening, Alex reflected on the day's events. He realized that the journey with Lyra was far from over. There would be more tests, more challenges, and moments that could provoke anger or frustration. But he now understood that responding thoughtfully with composure and respect would allow him to turn even sharp words into opportunities for connection and understanding. He felt a quiet sense of determination. Lyra's initial insults had been a challenge, and he had chosen to meet them not with retaliation, but with patience. That choice, he knew, was shaping a new foundation of trust, one that could grow into mutual understanding and respect. As he prepared for sleep, Alex understood that the key to this journey was not merely survival or observation. It was learning, patience, and the quiet power of dignity. Lyra's sharp tests had revealed more about her than about him, and in responding calmly, he had begun to show her the best of humanity. The lessons of this day would guide him in the challenges to come, and he felt ready to face them with the same quiet strength that had carried him through the palace tour. The following days brought new experiences, challenges, and subtle lessons for Alex. The palace of Scifi was no ordinary place. It was a living organism of ritual, responsibility, and pride. Every corridor, every room, every servant, and every ritual carried meaning. For Alex, each moment was an opportunity to observe and learn, not only about the alien culture, but about the young royal who had first insulted him. Lyra remained sharp, proud, and unpredictable, but Alex had begun to see glimpses of a different side of her, a side rarely visible to outsiders. One morning, he was invited to observe the council session where royal decisions were made. The room was vast, lined with crystalline pillars that hummed softly, and the council members sat in precise formation, their eyes focused, their expressions serious. Lyra presided over part of the session, her voice calm yet commanding. Alex watched, quietly from a designated observer's area, paying close attention to her demeanor. He noted her decisiveness, her ability to listen carefully, and the respect she demanded, not through fear, but through competence. During the session, a delicate debate arose over resource allocation for the planet's outer colonies. Council. Members argued passionately, each presenting detailed reports. Lyra listened intently, occasionally interjecting with sharp questions designed to probe their reasoning. Alex realized that her earlier sharpness toward him was not merely pride or rudeness. It was a reflection of her dedication to her responsibilities. She tested people because she needed to know who could be trusted to handle important matters. It was a lesson in leadership he had never fully appreciated until now. After the council, Alex was guided into a private courtyard where Lyra awaited him. Today, she seemed less inclined to provoke and more curious. She asked questions about his experiences, his decision-making, and how he would approach challenges similar to those faced by her council. Alex answered thoughtfully, explaining that humans often rely on teamwork, careful observation, and discussion before making critical choices. He emphasized the importance of patience, listening, and understanding perspectives before acting. Lyra listened carefully. Her sharp eyes, which had once carried judgment and mockery, now reflected genuine curiosity. She asked follow-up questions, probing deeper into his ideas. Alex noticed that she was beginning to test not only his knowledge, but his ability to remain consistent, calm, and thoughtful under pressure. He realized that their interactions had transformed from confrontation into a subtle dialogue, where understanding and respect were slowly taking root. Over the next few hours, they walked through the palace's living quarters and training areas. Lyra demonstrated physical training routines, and Alex watched, impressed by the discipline and precision of her movements. She explained that strength was not only physical, but mental, a combination of focus, skill, and patience. As she spoke, Alex recognized parallels with his own training on Earth. Discipline and patience were universal qualities, valued across cultures and worlds. At one point, Lyra challenged him with a scenario. If you were in command of a group and faced conflicting opinions, how would you proceed? She asked. Alex considered the question carefully. I would listen to each perspective, he replied. I would weigh the evidence, seek solutions that benefit everyone, and make decisions with both logic and empathy. Reacting impulsively or favoring only one voice rarely leads to the best outcome. Her expression was unreadable at first, but then a small, almost imperceptible nod followed. She seemed to acknowledge his reasoning without overtly praising him. This subtle recognition mattered. Alex understood that Lyra's respect was not given lightly, and even small gestures signaled progress. Over time, he began to see that she valued strength, patience, and integrity more than flattery or immediate agreement. As the day progressed, Alex noticed further changes in her behavior. The sharp edges in her words softened, replaced by questions aimed at understanding rather than testing. Lyra began to speak more openly about her responsibilities, her challenges as a young leader, and the pressure she faced to make decisions that affected the lives of countless citizens. Alex listened attentively, offering empathy when appropriate, never judgment or criticism. By late afternoon, Alex realized that a subtle bond had formed between them. It was not friendship yet, but a cautious mutual respect. Lyra had learned that he could handle her sharp words without anger, without defensiveness. Alex had learned that her pride and wit were part of a larger responsibility, a test of character not only for him, but for all who entered her world. During a quiet walk, Along the palace terraces, Lyra spoke more candidly. "Humans are different than I imagined," she admitted, her voice soft but sincere. "I did not expect patience and understanding to be so strong in someone like you." Alex nodded politely. "Different doesn't mean lesser," he replied. "We all have strengths and weaknesses. What matters is how we choose to act, how we handle challenges, and whether we learn from them." Her eyes lingered on him for a moment longer than usual, and in that silence, Alex sensed a shift. Lyra's sharp pride remained, but it was no longer aimed solely at testing him. Curiosity, understanding, and perhaps a measure of respect had begun to replace the edge of insult that had marked their first encounter. That evening, as the sun set over the crystal spires and the glowing gardens, Alex reflected on the transformation. The young royal who had insulted him was gradually seeing his character, his patience, and his respect for her world. In return, he was beginning to understand her, not just as a royal, but as a person carrying immense responsibility, shaped by culture, expectation, and pride. The day's lessons were clear. Patience, observation, and quiet integrity could overcome initial conflict. Respect earned through consistent behavior was far more powerful than any immediate reaction. Alex realized that the true mission was not simply to represent humanity, but to build bridges of understanding, to demonstrate that patience and dignity could turn confrontation into connection. As he prepared for rest, Alex felt a sense of quiet accomplishment. The tension between him and Lyra had eased, replaced by cautious mutual understanding. The journey was far from over, but he now knew that careful observation, empathy, and calm composure were the keys to navigating this alien world. The palace, once intimidating and full of provocation, had become a place of learning and discovery, a proving ground for character, patience, and respect. Alex understood that every interaction, every word, and every gesture mattered. The young, alien royal's sharp tests had revealed more than her pride. They had revealed the values, discipline, and responsibility required to lead her people. By responding thoughtfully, he had begun to show her the best of humanity, not through argument or defiance, but through patience, integrity, and the quiet strength of understanding. The final day of Alex's visit to the palace arrived, and a mix of emotions filled him. He felt pride in the progress he had made, curiosity about the future, and a quiet hope that his efforts had truly made a difference. For weeks, he had observed, learned, and navigated the delicate balance of diplomacy and personal interaction with Lyra, the 19-year-old alien royal who had first insulted him. Now, as he prepared to leave, he realized that the journey had changed him as much as it had changed her perception of humanity. The morning began with a formal breakfast in the palace dining hall. The room was vast and filled with sunlight reflecting off the crystalline walls. Lyra arrived, her presence commanding attention, yet today there was a noticeable difference in her demeanor. The sharpness that had marked their first encounter had softened. While she still carried her pride, there was an unmistakable note of respect in the way she acknowledged him. During the meal, they spoke of culture, traditions, and responsibilities. Lyra asked questions about how humans faced challenges, how they solved conflicts, and how they worked together to achieve goals. Alex answered with patience and thoughtfulness, sharing examples of human resilience, innovation, and cooperation. He spoke not only of accomplishments, but of the values that guided human actions: integrity, empathy, and the ability to learn from mistakes. Lyra listened closely, sometimes interrupting with thoughtful questions, but always with a tone that suggested genuine curiosity rather than provocation. Alex noticed the subtle change in her expressions. Her eyes no longer carried the sharp edge of judgment, but reflected interest and consideration. He realized that over the past days, their relationship had transformed from confrontation to cautious mutual respect. After breakfast, Alex was invited to walk through the palace gardens one last time. The glowing plants, shimmering streams, and crystalline trees seemed even more beautiful than before. As they strolled, Lyra spoke about her hopes and challenges as a young leader. She shared her fears about making mistakes that could affect her people and the weight of responsibility she carried. Alex listened attentively, offering empathy and thoughtful responses, showing understanding without judgment or criticism. At one point, Lyra turned to him and said, "I underestimated humans when we first met. I expected weakness, impulsiveness, and anger. But you have shown patience, calm, and understanding. I see now that strength comes in many forms, not just physical or immediate." Alex smiled gently. "Thank you," he replied. "Every culture has its strengths and lessons to offer. Humans are not perfect, but we try to act with integrity and learn from our experiences. It is the choices we make under pressure that define us, not the mistakes we face along the way." Her expression softened further, and for a moment, the prideful mask of royalty gave way to genuine curiosity and acknowledgement. She seemed to recognize that Alex's restraint and patience were not signs of weakness, but of confidence and character. This unspoken understanding marked a turning point in their relationship, a quiet bond built on mutual respect rather than words or titles. Later in the day, Alex attended a ceremonial farewell organized by the palace. The royal family, council, members and staff gathered to bid him goodbye. Lyra approached him personally, her posture formal yet sincere. She extended her hand, a simple gesture, but one filled with significance, and said, "You have honored our world with your presence, and you have taught me valuable lessons. Your patience and integrity will be remembered." Alex accepted her gesture with humility. "It has been an honor to visit your world and learn from it," he replied. "I hope that our people can continue to understand and respect one another, just as we have tried here." The farewell ceremony proceeded with speeches, expressions of goodwill, and exchanges of gifts. Alex observed carefully, noting the rituals, the respect displayed, and the way relationships were formalized and strengthened through gestures and words. Every detail reinforced the importance of patience, understanding, and diplomacy, qualities he had relied on throughout his stay. As the ceremony concluded, Lyra walked with him to the palace gates. She spoke quietly, almost as if sharing a personal thought. "I admit, at first, I thought you would falter under my words. But you did not. You taught me that strength can be quiet, that dignity is found in restraint, and that understanding often begins with listening." Alex nodded, appreciating the sincerity in her tone. "And you have taught me that leadership carries challenges I cannot fully imagine," he replied. "Your responsibilities, your pride, and your dedication to your people are remarkable. I have learned much from observing you as well." At the gates, the transport vessel waited. The human delegation prepared to depart, and the staff lined the pathway, offering gestures of farewell and respect. Lyra gave a final nod, her eyes conveying both acknowledgement and hope. Alex stepped aboard, taking a moment to look back at the palace, the gardens, and the young royal who had first insulted him. He reflected on the journey, how initial confrontation had transformed into understanding, how patience had overcome provocation, and how respect had grown from careful observation and thoughtful action. As the vessel lifted into the sky, Alex felt a sense of accomplishment and gratitude. The mission had been more than a diplomatic visit. It had been a lesson in patience, humility, and the quiet power of dignity. Lyra's initial sharpness, once a source of tension, had become a catalyst for growth, understanding, and mutual respect. He knew that the lessons he had learned on Scifi would stay with him forever. Even as the planet receded into the distance, glowing softly beneath the morning sun, Alex carried with him the memory of the young royal, her sharp words, and the transformation that had occurred between them. The experience had shown him that real strength was not measured by immediate reactions or displays of power, but by the ability to remain calm, observe carefully, and act with integrity and understanding. The journey of the human visitor and the 19-year-old alien royal ended not with conflict or anger, but with a quiet, lasting impression. Through patience, respect, and thoughtful action, Alex had turned initial insult into meaningful connection. Lyra had learned to see humanity in a new light, and Alex had gained a profound understanding of leadership, pride, and the universal values that bridge even the most distant worlds. As the vessel disappeared among the stars, Alex looked forward to the future with hope, knowing that the seeds of respect and understanding planted on Scifi would continue to grow, shaping relations between humans and the alien world for years to come. The experience had been transformative, a testament to the power of patience, quiet dignity, and the enduring potential for connection across cultures, species, and worlds.